Former Tourism Minister Derek Hanekom has been appointed as SAA interim chair. The appointment will be in place until SAA equity partner Takatso Consortium becomes fully involved. The former interim chair, John Lamola, will remain as interim CEO and director. We're now joined by Khaya Sithole, an independent analyst, on this latest move by Pravin Gordhan. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon, Khaya. Well, not many, but some sectors of the population suspect the timing of this move, NUMSA being one of them, especially in light of an audit happening by the Auditor General. Your take on this move?
Good afternoon to the viewers. So there are a couple of issues about this particular appointment, in that firstly, the board has been working on essentially skeleton stuff ever since SAA emerged from the business rescue. So we know that they haven't had a full complement of the board. It's become so bad. They've had the chairman of the board acting as a CEO, which is not really desirable. It reminds us of the fiasco that the president engineered at the SABC, where up until today, the CEO was his own board chairperson. In fact, he was the entire board. In the case of SAA, the key question here is when the minister says it's an interim board, he seems to labor under the impression that the Takatso deal is going to be finalized. The problem with the Takatso deal is that it needs money. Everybody knows it needs money, and National Treasury is not providing that money. So until we actually know where the money is going to come from, that's going to take care of the historical liabilities that Takatso refuses to inherit, this interim may be there for a very long time.
And that's just it, that Takatso deal being a huge factor in all of this. So the new board that is coming in, they would still need to familiarize themselves with what needs to happen, no?
Yes, so the very first question that they have to deal with is the question of how to deal with the outstanding audits. So SAA hasn't actually produced audited financial statements for over 5 years now. So it's important to get that out of the way. And once they've done that, then there'll be the question of the board, the current board that was there until yesterday, has been saying that from the middle of the year, as they say from the second quarter, they actually want to explore their international operations, reviving their international operations. So that's actually the big strategic issue that the board of SAA is going to deal with. Is the time right for them to go on their international drive? And if so, how they're going to finance it? The question of the Takatso deal is obviously also quite critical, because for as long as there is a pending transaction, it simply means that we are all waiting until either the competition authorities approve the deal and money is made available and Takatso says, yes, we are now taking over. So this board will only be updated once there is a finalization of that deal. It will mean that Takatso will bring in some of its board members, but given the golden share nature the proposed transaction, where the department or the government wants to still have a significant say in the affairs of the business, it will definitely also have board representation.
In terms of the composition of the board and the experience that is held by some members of the board, is this that team to do that and tick those items that you have listed off?
It's a difficult one, because the way it was sold to us is that the chairman in particular is someone who's got an established pedigree in navigating between private and public sector arenas, and the fact that he's been the tourism minister means that he's going to be the one trying to understand why it's important for SAA to take these guys. Well, everybody knew that. You don't need someone to have been a tourism minister to understand the link between the world of tourism and the world of aviation. The big issue here is that this is the board that is coming in on the back of a business rescue process, which fortunately for everyone dealt with a lot of the difficult legacy issues. Previous boards will have told you that, look, even if they thought that 10 members of staff needed to be offloaded, it was quite simply impossible to do that under old dimension. Under the business rescue process, it has emerged as a much leaner operation, and there's a much greater sense of agility. So if they then identify particular strategic avenues that they want to pursue, it'll be a bit easier for them to do that now. But as soon as Takatso comes in, should they decide to come in, of course, then they will be the dominant partner in the management of the airline. In other words, they'll be the one that are responsible for the day-to-day operations. And of course, the way SAA has been run in the past will be very different from the way it will be run in the future. Assuming that this still ever sees the light of day, I still have significant reservations about it, because in the last budget speech, we know that the Minister of Finance only gave 1 out of the 3.5 billion rand that was required. We do not know how much money SAA has been making or losing ever since they took back to the skies, I think in September 2021. So until we know whether the situation is worse or whether the situation is better, we actually do not know how much South African taxpayers are going to have to pay to ensure that Takatso does finalize the deal or abandons it formally.
Yeah, that is so curious, because speaking to Newzroom Afrika last night, Phakamile Majola of NUMSA mentioned that according to the intelligence that the union has, SAA has actually been turning the tide under, well, the board of yesterday. And so your point of South Africans are none the wiser in terms of how much money SAA has been making or losing should tell us what?
Yeah, so it's a tricky one because there is a veil of secrecy that has been adopted by the Department of Public Enterprises. Even Parliament cannot get information or insights about what is going on there. The rationale that has been applied by the minister is that there are commercial sensitivities associated with this. So therefore, if they had to disclose what is what the current affairs are, it will have some commercial disadvantage. Of course, no one takes that seriously because we must call it all out loud that it is absolute nonsense. SAA is a public entity, and of course, one of the consequences of being a public entity is that your information comes to the public, not to a particular department or not to a particular minister. So I don't think that Takatso can ever say that they were unaware that they were trying to buy into a public asset. So of course, if you know that it's a public asset, you should expect that its information must be tabled in Parliament. So this veil of secrecy that has been implemented by Minister Gordhan is quite simply unacceptable. But the fact that even Scotland, that even Parliament cannot actually do anything about it, shows you the significant political clout that he has. But I think until we actually have the financial statements, we actually do not know what we're talking about. We could be talking about the most profitable airline in the country, or we're talking about a cash shell that's burning cash every single day that we're going to have to put up in the long run.
To your point of the veil of secrecy being unacceptable, what is it then the old board was not able to do, or the new board will not be able to do when reading between the political lines in terms of making certain information available? Or does it stop with the Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan? And if he says no, then that's what it is.
Well, I think for as long as the minister has taken a particular view and the board is appointed by the minister, as you could see yesterday, even just how the minister said this is what the board is and this is how long they're going to be around, it's going to be difficult for a board to essentially usurp its authority and say we want to tell the public. So if it's a board that has been appointed by a minister, they do tend to have a tendency of deferring to the minister when it comes to difficult political decisions. So they'll say that if the department has taken a view that this is the way we should be engaging with the public in relation to these matters, then they're simply going to follow that. I do not see it as a board of disruptive agents who are going to say, Minister, our fiduciary responsibilities and our duties demand that we go and account to Parliament, whether you like it or not. That's not the board that is put together. That's not the board that we had previously, and that's not the type of board that he would ever put forward, because then it would undermine what he's been saying is a legitimate reason for this veil of secrecy. The closest we're ever going to get to resolving this is if the Auditor General is able to complete all the outstanding audits and then table them piecemeal by piecemeal, and by the time we see all of them, at least we would have caught up in terms of the information, and we may discover things that will shock us or may discover things that surprise us, but it's definitely out of anyone's control, with perhaps the exception of the minister, who can break the veil of secrecy if he wants to.
The pending Takatso deal, is it too far gone? What should we read into it pending?
The fact that the deal has taken so long means that there was probably not the greatest sense of due diligence that was undertaken by each respective organization, because if Takatso had been aware that this deal is contingent on the state putting up 3.5 billion rand, the state had made that commitment, well, then you simply don't move ahead. You must tell them explicitly that we will only transact on these particular terms. My suspicion is that, unfortunately, the minister oversold his position or oversold his capacity to convince National Treasury to make the finances available. So when National Treasury started resisting, then it caught everybody by surprise. It left everyone in limbo. But I do not believe that Takatso could have committed to saying, well, we're going to take over this thing even if the 3.5 billion is not provided, because that is fundamental to the deal. So Takatso says, these are the conditions. The minister said, this is what I'm going to do. And the minister simply hasn't been able to execute because he hasn't been able to convince National Treasury to pay up on those historic liabilities. And until we resolve that, there actually isn't a deal. Takatso should walk away. And if they don't, they'll have difficult times explaining to their own shareholders how they engaged in a deal that was clearly to their disadvantage if they walk in with a 3.5 billion rand hole on day one.
Thank you very much to Khaya Sithole, an independent analyst.